This is the 2022 Giant Reign E+. It's a long travel electric mountain bike that's built to rip. The bike has been developed by Giant's enduro team, and it's been fully updated over the previous gen with a ton of new features and tech. It's running mixed wheel size, has all new frame geometry and a brand new Sync Drive Pro motor system. There's 4 models in the range and prices start from £4,999. I'm riding the E+1, which is the second most expensive model, and this is priced at £6,299.
Big travel, 170mm fork, 160mm at the rear, mullet setup, burly build, and a bike that looks like it means business and can attack some of the rowdiest chunk the world has to offer.
I've been riding it for the last 2 months, and in this video I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about Giant's new big hitting enduro e-bike. I'm a big fan of long travel electric mountain bikes with slack head angles. It just makes sense when you have a motor to assist you. Traditional pedal-powered long travel slack mountain bikes can be a real chore to climb. They're less efficient and slow when you go up. But with a motor, that basically disappears. I really like climbing with an e-bike. Even basic uphills can be real fun. And at bike parks, you get way more riding time pedaling up instead of taking an uplift. Now, this may be marketed as a bike that is focused on the down and enduro, but the new geometry with steeper seat angle actually make it a bike that feels very comfortable for long trail loops, cross-country riding and old gravel tracks. It can be set up to be really supple and forgiving, with 160mm at the rear and 170 up front, soaking up the terrain as you go.
At the heart of the bike is the new for 2022 Yamaha PWX3 motor that is both smaller and lighter than the previous generation. On this particular model, it has a 625 watt-hour internal and removable battery, and on the range topping model it comes with a massive 750 watt-hour battery. Now, you can actually in some markets get the bigger battery for this bike, and they are interchangeable, so you don't have to worry about being stuck with a smaller battery if you buy the E+1 model like I have here.
I already said I like climbing on an e-bike. One of my favourite things to do is to climb things that I'd never have even bothered to on a regular pedal bike. The new motor has good low cadence grunt. It feels this is where it offers peak torque, right at the start of steep climbs when you really need it to give you a kick. Although the motor torque has increased to 85 Nm versus 80 on the prior model, the biggest benefits are not necessarily in the power output, but more the physical dimensions of the new drive unit. There's also more ground clearance compared to the last model. It's a strong climber, but that stock rear tyre isn't the best at digging into the dirt.
I've got to be honest, I can't notice a massive difference in the power and performance over the last motor. It is a little bit smaller, it's a little bit lighter, so there are some benefits over the previous generation. The power levels feel almost identical to me. And in terms of outright power, I don't think it's the most powerful motor system. I will have to do a future comparison video testing all the motors. Just fizzles out at the little bit of the top end. Saying that, the geometry and the pedaling platform, especially with the chip in the high position and partnered with the Yamaha PWX3, make it a pretty formidable climber.
But what if you don't want to climb super steep stuff or hit the gnarly downhill trails? Well, this bike is just as good at easygoing forest tracks. In fact, I love taking it out on exploration rides, discovering the local nature trails, riding peaceful single track and fire roads, and for sunset evening rides. So as it turns out, the bike can actually be used as a do-it-all electric mountain bike.
I want to talk a little bit about the suspension platform. It's called Maestro from Giant. It's lovely and plush off the top. And I don't think I've bottomed out the shock all day. But what I have found is I was getting a fair few pedal strikes when climbing. So I've popped the flip chip into the high position. Normally I'm a fan of low. I think it is a little bit more stable and helps get more stability on the downs, on the berms. But actually this bike is so good at climbing, and I was finding that I was clipping the pedals more so than most other bikes that I've tested. But in the high position, it works beautifully. It actually steepens out the head angle a little bit, but it is still slack enough for some of these steep technical trails in Wales.
When Giant claim the bike is made for the rough stuff and enduro, they are not wrong. This bike absolutely shreds. If you like it steep, rough, rocky and chunky, then this bike is an absolute weapon. The bike with its low bottom bracket, the excellent Maestro suspension platform, and big travel at the rear with the stiff and supportive 170mm fork thrives on steep and technical terrain. Its slack 63-degree head angle provides high levels of confidence on the steepest stuff, but also I found on flowy trails, it's not too docile to move about quickly, despite its almost 25 kilo weight. Well, what a bike, lots of really cool stuff to talk about. Some things that maybe could be improved for a future version as well. But damn, this is an all-out brawler. It is a mega capable enduro bike. Now, a few things actually after the video that I probably should mention is that I did some measurements of the head angle and the bottom bracket height, and this is a really slack, super slack electric mountain bike with a very low bottom bracket height. And I couldn't work out why I was getting so many pedal strikes when I was going uphill. I'm normally quite conscious of timing the crank rotation so I don't clip roots and rocks and things. But even when I was trying my hardest, I kept kind of clipping little bits and pieces. And actually I had a pretty nasty fall on a regular flow trail just when I was pedaling fairly hard. I clipped one of those roots that kind of sticks out of the trail, clipped one of those and fell off. That was in the low position, so I put it in the high position on the trail and it felt much, much better for climbing, but it still retained the stability and the benefits you get with a low bottom bracket height. And when I got back to the studio, I measured it. I measured the bottom bracket height in the high position and the head angle, and it was 331 millimeters in high, and the head angle was 62.8 degrees. So if you compare that with a lot of modern electric mountain bikes, it's got a very low bottom bracket height and a slack head angle, which means when you're pointing it down, no wonder it was so planted and stable. It absolutely thrives and is in its element when you're going downhill. And the chunkier, the rowdier and the steeper, the better. It really is. Like, they've built it for enduro racing, and that's exactly what it excels at. Gnarly enduro style tracks, downhill tracks, but it's still really rideable for those cross-country loops and just regular trail days out. So let's go through some of the things that I think could be a little bit better. The motor power at the top end does fizzle out a little bit. It seems to have its grunt low down, and I think that's where it makes the majority of its torque really low down in the kind of 30, 40, 50, 60 RPM range. So if you're going up to a steep hill, you can give it just some pedal cranks and rotations and it'll propel you up there. I did find that right at the very top end, it felt like it lost a little bit of its oomph. Nothing to be really concerned about at all, but it felt like it lost a little bit of power low down. I also find the Yamaha PWX series has this twitchiness on the pedals, so if you're at a standstill chatting to a mate and you're resting your feet on the pedals, it wants to kind of lurch forward. It's like a newborn puppy. It just wants to kind of go all the time. And I really appreciate that when you're on a trail and you can get launched immediately, but it is a little bit irritating when you're just kind of chilling, sat on the bike. I know that bikes are meant for riding, not just sitting around and chilling, but I noticed that it kind of wanted to lurch forward all the time. And yeah, I think that could be a little bit better. The battery display goes down in 20% increments. It's not the easiest way to identify exactly how much battery you've got left. So I'd like to see maybe all the LEDs go down in 10% increments. So it helps you as a rider a bit better identify how much battery percentage you've got left. The stock tyre on the rear, this is my personal preference, but I don't think the High Roller 2 lends itself to the capabilities of this bike. Because the bike is great at climbing, steep seat angle, weight is well positioned, the rear tyre, just in the conditions that I'm riding in the damp, cold UK, just didn't get enough bite. Personal preference, but I would stick a DHR2 out the back immediately on the bike. The dropper post on the XL bike is a little bit too small. I'd really like a 200mm dropper post on there, personally for me. The weight is a little bit heavy, it's 24.8 kilos. And the app, I didn't really find the app that beneficial. I have read online where some users have had some reports of it not really working and crashing, so I didn't really use the Giant app so much, and I didn't really like the auto mode that Giant have built into the software. I found it couldn't react quick enough when it started to get really steep quickly. And it also gave me little kind of pulses and surges of power where I wasn't really expecting it. So I just used the manual modes most of the time. On the whole, there's some minor points that I just think could be refined, but the positive stuff is long. There is a long list of really good stuff about this bike. It is an absolute enduro weapon. Super slack head angle, even in the high position. It's still under 63 degrees. Low bottom bracket. You can absolutely rail berms, and going downhill, you are so planted and it feels mega stable. And with the long travel, 170mm fork and 160mm at the rear, yeah, it's just such a capable bike. And I felt like I could ride this down anything. Steep rock chutes, stuff that you're just riding blind and just takes care of you as a rider. It looks after you. It loves long, steep, gnarly rocks. The steeper, the better. And the suspension, the Maestro suspension platform, is lovely and plush, no harsh bottoms out that I can remember. And it's fairly quiet in operation. I couldn't notice many clunking sounds from the motor. On power, it's quite quiet. The build quality of the Giant bike is really good. It's beefy, burly. It's got the big, fat, oversized head tube for the e-bike fork. And to me, it feels really strong. I think it could take a beating. And the conditions I was riding in was wet, cold, icy, snowy UK winter, really muddy, got really dirty, got wet. And yeah, the build quality to me seems really decent. The steep seat angle helps with the climbs. Your weight is perched forward, and with a low down grunt from the Yamaha PWX3 motor, as long as you can keep spinning and you weight forward, the bike will keep climbing. Caveat being that rear tyre was the weak spot for climbing on this bike. The integration of the electrics is really well thought out. Giant have thought about the remote control. It's nice and neat, well integrated. There's nothing really in your face. It's just a nice design when you're looking down. Sensible build. The XT stuff is top quality. XT drivetrain and XT brakes are great performers. But on the whole, an outstanding, capable electric enduro mountain bike. Capable of pretty much anything. From local cross-country rides, trail riding, enduro, downhill tracks, slack head angle, long travel. You can take this bike anywhere. And you're getting a lot of bike for your money. Just over £6,000, and you're getting fantastic quality Fox suspension. The fork is basically the factory level fork, just without the Kashima. It's got all the same adjustments, a Shimano XT drivetrain, 625 battery, and a great build from Giant with local dealer backup. So comparatively, yes, it's a lot of money, but when you look at what else is on the market, I think this represents outstanding value for money. So I would really recommend this bike if you like it steep, gnarly, rocky, chunky, or you want a bike that you could take to the Alps in the summer. So on the whole, an outstanding e-bike from Giant. The geometry's bang on, it's a great build, and it is superbly capable. Thanks for watching. Any questions, pop them down below and I'll do my best to answer. And subscribe if you like these videos. I bring out weekly e-bike videos, and I'll catch you soon.